Management workshop. We have with us today Alok Goel, who is the CEO of freecharge.in, and before that he was the Chief Product Officer at Redbus, and he's also an ex-Google product manager. Along with him, there are three more great guys with us, and Alok will take on from now from me and explain how this is going to work. Alok, please.
Initially, this was supposed to be a 1.5 hour hands-on workshop. But then everyone's time was cut and we were reduced to 60 minutes only. And in that time, doing a hands-on workshop didn't seem like a feasible idea. So we sort of pivoted like a true startup. And we said, instead of doing everything around the startup product management processes and the best practices, let's actually do a session on one single aspect. So what was that one single aspect we picked? We said, let's do a session on minimum viable product and hypothesis testing. Because today morning, if you remember Ravi's session, how many of you were in Ravi's talk earlier in the day, which was the first keynote discussion? He said there are three things which go in the startup in the very first stage. Setting up the right founding team, getting the right funding, and then getting to the market. And this third thing, getting to the market, is the most trickiest one. Because if you don't get it right, everything else will actually fail. And this is where minimum viable product and the hypothesis testing in a startup scenario makes lots of sense. And today I've got three of the great guys from the industry. I really respect each of them for their great product insights. And I've got Subra. He is the head of product and marketing at ClearTrip. And before that, he was with Yahoo and Siemens. And he has been with ClearTrip for about 5 years. Right, Subra? Then I've got Rahul Kulkarni, who is right now the CPO of Socrati, which is an ad technology and analytics company. And a rockstar guy, a very, very old-time friend of mine. From Google days. He was with Google for 6 years. He was heading Awkward. He was heading Google Finance. And he has been a rockstar guy on cloud computing. So if there are any questions on how to build products on cloud, go and talk to Rahul. And then I've got Rajesh Baisani. He is currently head of website freecharge.in. And we are colleagues at Freecharge. And before that, he was handling redbus.in website. And before that, he was with Book My Show. So all three of us are going to talk about slightly different variants of minimum viable product and hypothesis testing. These are two of the very much overloaded terms in the industry. Different people have different meanings, connotations of this whole thing. So the idea of this session is more to actually encourage you guys to think, more to seed some ideas into how to go about thinking about these two things. Ultimately, it is about your business. You have to go over and doing these things. So as I get started, how many of you guys are actually an entrepreneur right now or doing something in a very, very early stage of the product? Just a quick show of hands. Okay, about half of the people. Can I ask, out of the people who are actually doing these two things, how many of you actually right now can define your hypothesis of your business or product in less than 7 words? Only 2 hands out of several dozens of the hands which came out. Can anybody, any of 2 of you willing to just share the hypothesis in those 7 words? Very good. But look, the shocking thing is that while there were so many hands which were raised for saying, hey, we are doing entrepreneurship or we are leading an early stage product, not many of the people actually said that we can crisply define the hypothesis of the product, which is a bit strange. So I'll start off with my view of hypothesis testing by making an assertion. In my view, entrepreneur is more like a scientist or the economic scientist. Just like scientists do experiments and they stumble upon great things while doing those experiments, in a very similar manner, entrepreneur is actually the scientist of the free economy. And in that free economy, free market, he is doing experiments and finding out ways and opportunities of making money, creating value, and doing something big in terms of changing people's lives. So in that sense, there is not a whole lot of difference between an entrepreneur and an alchemist. Alchemy, as many of you might know, is the science which came out like hundreds of years back, and people wanted to create gold out of iron. While nobody found real gold, but people found something equivalent because they found many more other elements during their experiments. And they incidentally, sort of accidentally stumbled upon some things which were valuable. In a very, very similar manner, we all entrepreneurs are doing some or the other things in our business by saying, hey, this is what I want to do. There is a probability that we might struck something really big out of this whole thing. So in that way, entrepreneurs are very much like alchemists and we are all doing experiments. And in the world of science, those experiments are quite driven by the hypothesis testing. A hypothesis is more of your belief that this is true. And nobody can go and prove that it is true. Sun rises in the east, nobody can actually go and prove that why will that sun rise in the east. It is a hypothesis that has not been proven wrong. We all sort of learned this concept of hypothesis in our school days. But that concept, same very concept actually works out very well in the entrepreneurship world, where you have to look at your product or your business that you're trying to do and find out what are those key assumptions which are crucial to your product. And I'll be talking about an example from my previous world. Once you figure out what are those few assumptions in your business, then you actually define the hypothesis, which is like, what is the data that you need from the market to prove that point? And once you have defined that, hey, these are the key assumptions in my model, in my business, and for proving these key assumptions, this is the data that I need, then you go out into the market trying to figure out what is the work that you should be doing to get that data. And whatever that definition of work, whatever that minimal work that you can do to get that data is your minimum viable product. So minimum viable product is actually nothing but the least amount, and it is actually literally the least amount of work that you do to actually get that data and find out whether your assumption is right or not. And in the sense, it is literally the least amount of work because you may not write a first line of code. We'll actually be sharing few examples. Rahul and I will be talking about examples where we didn't write any piece of code, but we had the first minimum viable product out there. But the whole goal of minimum viable product is to test that assumption, that data point. So I'll talk about an example from my previous history. At Google, I was trying to build a product. AdWords, how many of you have used AdWords? About half of you guys have used AdWords. It is an incredibly complex product, right? If you go as a newbie into the AdWords, you cannot understand it. So our product vision was, how can we make a simple product, advertising product for a SMB, which is like a coffee shop or a restaurant. How can that guy use Google's power to create ads and get more footfalls and more business? So there are key things. Number one thing that we wanted to build in this product was it should be a completely automated product, because a guy like a coffee guy, a restaurant owner does not have time to manage AdWords campaign. He is better off brewing coffee than actually managing AdWords on a computer. So how can we do everything in an automated manner? But that is incredibly complex. So instead of building all the sophisticated machine learning systems and complex stuff, we said, what are those minimal assumptions that we are making in the system? So the minimal assumptions we finally, after a lot of debates, identified were two key assumptions. One key assumption that we said was, using AdWords will actually be able to drive ROI to a small time entrepreneur, like a barista or a coffee shop. So that driving ROI is the most important thing. If I don't drive ROI to that guy, tomorrow he's not going to advertise. He'll try out for a day or a week, but if he does not get the ROI, he's not going to come back after that week. So driving that ROI was the most important thing for us. Second thing we said was, we'll be able to do everything in an automated manner. That was the second assumption that was there in our system, because if things don't work in an automated manner, we are not going to be successful in the product. So then we looked at these two key assumptions and then we said, okay, let's find out the data to prove these 2 points. So on the first point of doing the ROI part, we didn't go into building any product, writing any single line of code. What we did was, we actually found out about 50 advertisers who were willing to experiment, and then those for 50 advertisers, world's best brains at Google were optimizing their campaigns manually. We created their manual campaign in AdWords and we started optimizing it. The idea was not to write the code. The idea was not to get into the complex stuff. The idea was that if in 2 weeks from now we are able to prove that we are able to add value, then we should pursue on this product forward. If we actually find out that we are not able to add ROI to the advertiser, then either we figure out a different way or we move on to a different product. Because that is where the fail fast philosophy of the lean startup comes in. If we are not able to add ROI, then there is no point of wasting further time on this point. We are much, much better off doing something else. So instead of writing any piece of code, we actually just sat down and we manually optimized those campaigns. And after about 3 or 4 weeks of effort, we actually were able to drive the ROI. And that was a good comfort factor, because if manually I'm able to drive ROI for this small coffee shop, then there is no reason why an automatic system will not be able to do, right? So now I at least knew that there is a way by which we can use Google's AdWords system and drive ROI to a small mom and pop shop. That part was clarified, that chapter was closed. Now the next question was, how do we do it, right? But it will never happen that 6 months from now I'll find out that there is no actually way of driving ROI to the advertiser. So once that chapter was closed, we went into the next question. Next question was that we'll be able to do all of this in an automated manner. Now, automation is a very complex thing, particularly for a product like an ads product. You have to write lots and lots of code to do any of that kind of automation. So we said, how do we actually do it in a least possible time, and again define a minimum viable product for that part. So we suddenly started masquerading ourselves as the machines. We said, we'll define few rules in our mind and we'll create campaigns manually, but think that we are machines. We'll not do things intelligently, we'll define few rules, and based on those rules, we'll manually do things and then create the campaigns. So if you look at if you sort of imagine a coffee shop, there are various different type of ads that you can create for a coffee shop. Some will have a coffee image, some will have a hot coffee image, some will have a text, some will have an offer, some will not have an offer, a lot of different kind of things. So we actually manually created ads and all the system for those guys. And after some time we figured out, hey, this is the recipe of creating the automatic campaigns. And then we went ahead and started automating it. But at the end of these 2 steps, we knew that we will certainly be able to drive ROI for the advertiser, and we will certainly be able to do it in an automated manner. Once we had done these 2 data point validations, we knew now it is just a matter of actually implementing the stuff, and we actually have a solid product out there. We will actually make money out of this product, and now it is just a matter of implementing it. And then we actually staffed the team, which actually started writing first piece of code and started implementing the whole thing. So in this manner, without writing a single piece of code, in flat 2 months time frame, at about 100 advertisers, we were able to prove the entire product, and later on the product was finally launched in the market as AdWords Express for display ads. And it is actually a public product right now in the market. So with this, I'll pass on to Rahul Kulkarni, who will share his example of minimum viable product.
Good afternoon, everyone. So in the next 10 minutes odd, I'm going to give you 3 fundamentals that you really shouldn't forget in terms of creating a product from scratch. One, along the lines of not writing a line of code. That's really important. To illustrate that, let me tell you a little story. How many of you have heard of Aardvark? Aardvark was a very small company, a social Q&A site. So they started social Q&A site, got acquired by Google. Not for the users, not for the technology, but for a concept of doing product really quickly, early on. You know, if you think of a social Q&A site, what all components would you think of? Think of a UI, right? It's a user-facing thing. What Alok described is a fairly back-end product where you say, okay, let me write the optimizers after I manually tried and nobody really knows. There is no interface to it, or you can get away without an interface. What happens if your product is very much interface-driven? So here you have a social Q&A site which has some UI for the people to put in questions, some UI for people to put in answers, and then interaction happens. People come to the site. You need to drive traffic to the site. Well, this team of just a few guys, what they did was they started, any guesses? How did they start? What is the first UI? Email. Why do we always forget that email is an excellent UI? So they started with email. Guess how they started? They manually took some friends' email addresses, sent some Facebook messages, directly looking up people on Facebook amongst their friend list. Okay, who knows about the environment? And seeded it with questions themselves. I think you know great things about the environment. Could you please answer how plastic affects the environment? I think you really know about fine art. Could you please tell me why this Monet painting is priced higher than this other painting? And suddenly people start responding. They're like, oh, I'm selected, I'm selected. People, you just elevate their egos, they do magic for you. That's the magic of crowdsourcing. So you put this into action, you shoot some emails, and boom, you have a product running. They literally had couple, not just a couple, 10, 20,000 users without a line of code. They kept sending these emails back and forth, automated the email sending process, automated the product selection, the people selection process, and then eventually built a UI. That was the process that attracted Google to acquire them. So the first thing, no matter what the startup is, I've seen this happen at multiple places, you always have to say, no line of code first. What can you do without writing one line? The moment you have an engineering team on it, right? Gone, it's a black hole. And then you don't know what came out of it. Alright, second point. Micro-versioning the product. So how many of you have seen products launch on time? Never, right? Okay, I've seen products built for, at National Instruments, I've seen products built for a NASA or a Boeing. Those are control systems, and of course those need to be tested. At Google, we build products for the consumer. At Socrates, we build products to sell goods on e-commerce sites, manage marketing there. None of these times have I seen a product shipped on time. Incredibly talented people, but software is such a piece that lots of unknowns exist. What do you do? Now you can say, okay, now that my minimal viable product is defined, I've experimented with it, I've figured it out with email, figured it out with these little tests. Here is V1. So you very proudly go, prove in hypothesis proven, check, 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 go to stakeholders, here's my product list, here's V1, go. Toss over the wall, and then engineering sits on the V1. नहीं सर वो ये थोड़ा बाकी है ये database थोड़ा corrupt हो गया. Oh no, monitors I haven't fixed those, and oh this won't scale at all. Did I tell you I was doing it on MySQL? नहीं, इसको तो Mongo चाहिए. And if you don't have a Redis cache, then it's gone. And like, dude, what mumbo jumbo did you just say? But I caught one thing: product will not ship. Did you say? And that's where things break. Now the way engineering typically designs stuff is everything is very interconnected. You think of a MySQL DB getting hit because maybe reads are faster, writes are faster, whatever the reasons are. Then you say, okay, I'm going to have some InfoBright kind of database because you want to hit it every time for analytics, for a UI there in front of it. Everything has a reason. They're experts in the fields and they make the right decisions. It's just that they tend to couple too many things together. It's this maze of things that are interdependent, and you can't pull out one thing and launch it. It is our job as product managers to intercept that very much at the design stage to say, no. What is V.1? And literally V.1, you know what's the best V.1? I have sent an invite for a demo next Friday. We're going to demo it to the entire company. It's going to be a big fanfare. Order free pizza, I'm going to demo it, and there's a big, there are posters all over. It's like, dude, we haven't even seen the tech spec. We haven't done anything. No, we're demoing it next Friday. That's V1. That's V.1. Then you say V.3. What is V.3? This email sending thing happens. You prove the concept in a very minimal way. V.7, you say, dude, I don't care about your Redis and your InfoBright. Just give me this working for 10 clients. Like, okay, 10 clients, yeah, MySQL can handle it. Go ship it. Thank you. Why didn't you tell me that before? Otherwise, you had a plan for, okay, then I'm going to transfer it to Hadoop, and then it would be backed up, and then I have a sharded MySQL database, and 6-month roadmap. Don't be blind to it. You are controlling that. You're not at the mercy of design, you're at the control lever there. Okay, second point. Third and the last point is the most important one. Everyone's heard of Emperor's New Clothes? Right? That happens in every company all the time. And you know why we don't see it? Because it's the junior most engineer who just joined 3 months ago, comes and says, you know, Rahul, I think this, we don't have a load balancer, dude. I don't know how this thing is going to scale. It's going to crash. And then this know-it-all architect of 5 years in the company comes and like, dude, no worries. You know, we have that load balancer in this. I'll start it up when we launch it, and it's all okay. Never ignore that one line from that junior most guy who just joined last month. He's always right. Never ignore what engineers say. So it's somewhat conflicting. I'm telling you to go fight with them to say, dude, no, ship it. At the same time, don't ignore what they really mean to say. Often what happens is we are the extroverts, right? In product management, you would go, people would talk, and we can spend hours. Engineers talk very little, but when they say something, they mean it. And it's at our peril that we ignore it. So when they say, I think this is going to break, please listen to them. Ask them, probe them, Okay, where is it going to break? Why is it going to break? Often what happens is the business need for what is going to break isn't communicated by them. Why would it? Because they don't know the business side of things. So you say, okay, if the East Coast data center goes down, what are the implications? Okay, my traffic to New York will stop. Okay, I can't serve Europe. That's okay. All my initial beta customers are in Bay Area. So West Coast will live, right? Okay, worst case if there's a East Coast, it will get routed to the West Coast, right? You're set. Not an issue. But think through that. Think through that. Or you say, let's block a launch. So I'll give you a very quick example of one product that we just launched yesterday. So we directly integrated with Facebook on something called Facebook Exchange. So it's a real-time bidding platform. Very incredibly hard thing to build. Why? Because Facebook sends us a cookie saying, do you want to send an ad to this cookie? And within 100 milliseconds, we are going to see the cookie and we're saying, yeah, I know this cookie. Okay, what are the tags on this cookie? What will this guy like? And we compute a product as to what is the ad and messaging that would work for that product. And then boom, we toss the product ad and bid on it on Facebook. This process happens in 120 milliseconds. We had to ship it in 1 month flat. Facebook's like, you're one of the very select few in the world who have got this access. Great, now deliver on it. You've got 1 month. How do you define? So we said, the way we defined the whole product, we created a lot of breakthroughs. Because we said, no, we don't have time for UI. Let's throw all engineering in terms of the real-time bidding piece. We got away, instead of building a UI which helps you create segments for retargeting, we literally went to a completely automated back-end tag-based approach. These innovations only happen when you are stretched. So whenever you are stretched for time, take it as a blessing. You will come up with solutions that you have never thought before. So I'll turn it over to Subra, who will also take you through some exciting examples from ClearTrip.